Um, so, what is Pan Africanism? Pan Africanism is basically all nations of Africa, in this context, countries, come together to form continental unity, right? The main goals are independence and collaboration, right? But it seems that most countries aren't willing to be Pan African, most especially South Africa, because I come from South Africa. I know that in South Africa, they are black immigrants who come from other parts of Africa who most of the time come here with bad intentions, right? They sell drugs, human trafficking, you know, rituals, all that stuff, man. It's true. It does happen. But until when, as South Africa, until when will we gatekeep like ourselves, our influence? Until when? Because let me tell you this, like Europeans, they always find a way to unite. They always find a way to unite. I mean, us, it's like as if we're giving each other like an excuse to be divided. Yes, they sell drugs. Yes, they do all these nasty things. But where is the silver lining? You know, it's not all of them who do it. And most of the time, we kind of fail to understand the situation that these people are coming from. So always negative towards them. Yes, they do wrong. And if the law doesn't take action when South Africans report such acts, then they're justified to take matters into their own hands. We're not waiting for white people to solve our problems either. So why would we wait for law enforcement to solve our problems when they're doing nothing about it? I understand. But at the same time, we should not use that as an excuse for division. Now, personally, I do not want a borderless Africa. That is chaos. Everyone will just move to the south. We know this. I think the best way is for Africa to collaborate as if there are no borders, because territories are territories. We cannot reverse everything back to the way it was originally. We must just adapt to what we have now. Uh, Another thing is, um, for all the black immigrants who come to South Africa, you must understand, number one, the population in South Africa, it's too much. South Africa has an increasing crime rate, not mainly because of immigrants, but immigrants do play a role, like I said. Some immigrants sell drugs, some immigrants take part in human trafficking. Cool. Um, South Africa is for South Africans, such as Nigeria is for Nigerians, you understand? So just because South Africa is in Africa, it doesn't mean that you're entitled to be there. It doesn't work that way. Someone's territory is someone's territory. You cannot just shout Pan Africanism, we're all brothers and sisters, and then for some reason you feel entitled to step wherever you want to step. It doesn't work that way, especially if you're illegal. If you're illegal, you should be behaving. You should be behaving if you're illegal. I don't get immigrants who move in to South Africa illegally and then they don't behave. I don't get them. Another thing is, as South Africans, we are not intimidated by other Africans. That's the first thing I want to say. Okay, I'm not sure if it's the first thing, but we're not intimidated by other Africans. Another thing is, whatever other Africans in the north, in the west, in the east, whatever they possess, whatever phenotype they possess, we possess. You know, we as South African men can also be melanated. We can also be tall. We can also be strong. We're diverse. I do not know where these stereotypes of South African men have small phalluses. South African men are lazy. South African men are all these negative things. They don't want to spend money, or they spend too much money. Like which one is it? All those disrespectful stereotypes, which I do not know where they come from, they're not true. We're not intimidated by anyone. They're not true. Uh, South African women are not a trophy. South African women are not a trophy. Even if you could take South African women, all of them, today, we wouldn't be crying. There's plenty of women in the world. South African men do not solely depend on South African women. We're not afraid of you taking, like our woman. You can take our woman. We don't care. But the problem is when it seems as if our women are being abused, our women are being killed, our women are being used as sex slave, then that's a problem. That's a problem. Otherwise, if they're not mistreated, it's fine. We can also diversify. Nigerians aren't the only ones who can diversify. Zimbabweans aren't the only ones who can diversify. We can marry other cultures. We're not stuck. We're not stuck. We're not lazy as South African men. We're not lazy as South African people as a whole. It's just that due to the data that is recorded, they always show people who are unemployed in the formal sector, but never show people who are employed in the informal sector as much. That's why there's this overabundance of, oh, South Africa has the most highly unemployed rates in the world. They're not considering, the informal sector. They're not considering that. Another rule in South Africa is don't mistake kindness for weakness. South Africans were not weak as South Africans. Just because I act nice to a fellow Nigerian brother, fellow Kenyan brother, fellow Namibian brother, it doesn't mean that I'm weak or I'm a pushover or I'm a walkover. It just means that I'm practicing common decency. you know, respect, if you will. But now, if you mistake my kindness for weakness, you look at me and you're like, oh, South African men are so weak. South African people are so weak. They let us do anything. They're not fighting with us. They're not fighting for this area, that area. It's not weakness. It's kindness. And we've been kind enough to support black immigrant businesses. We've been kind enough to do that. I do my hair. I do my hair like at a Nigerian guy's barber shop. And it's a common thing. S- Do not confuse our kindness for weakness. Um, White people who hire black immigrants are not your friends. There's nothing wrong if a black immigrant, is hired by a white person in South Africa. There's nothing wrong. Uh, the only thing that's wrong is that you think that you are better than us when you are hired by these boys. You think that you're much more hardworking than us. Listen to me. We've done it all. There is nothing that you are achieving in South Africa that we haven't tasted before. We've done it all. You get me? So just because the white man lets you enjoy a bit of change by hiring some cheap labor, it doesn't mean that you're special. I mean, there were two women who were foreign nationals from other parts of Africa who were fed to pigs. Didn't end well, eh? And the very same people who had to speak up for those people were South Africans because it happened in South Africa, and the majority of the population is black South Africans. So you're not special if the white man decides to hire you cheaply because he knows that you're a foreign national. And as you're a foreign national, he can use your services at a lower price than an actual South African. For Pan-Africanism to be feasible, I think a cultural collaboration should be ensured. I think that if we find a common ground to blend all of our cultures or customs, we can find the unity that will give us the will to continue improving and educating our entire African diaspora to better our lives in the future and end this colonial rule that has been influencing our lives before we were even born. Imagine that. We need common ground. And I acknowledge this as a South African that if South Africa gets developed and it's this highly advanced country, what about the rest of Africa, South Africa is not a heaven on its own. It doesn't work that way. You know, they could even come a time where South Africa could be in need. And who else do we have to help us except for our African neighbors? You see? So yeah, tribalism is It's very, very bad. We're just killing ourselves from the inside, you know. Um, Speaking specifically to South Africans now, like the Zulus, yeah, you all need to stop that thing where every time someone disagrees with you, you have to pull out a spear and challenge them. That needs to stop, you know. For the Xhosas, we have to pull ourselves back together. Like, we really need to pull ourselves back together. We really need to. You know, our morals are flying up and down. I don't like that. Personally, I don't like that. For the Sutus, Zwanas, you know, and the rest, um, um, I'm not really, you know, equipped to speak about those other South Africans, but you know, if they have any issues within themselves, they should also sort them out. So yeah, peace.